American University of Phnom Penh would like to introduce you to our newest program, which is called AUPP Podcast. Hello, my name is Smai.
And my name is Nita. So, Smai, what exactly is AUPP Podcast?
AUPP Podcast is an informal conversation that we're going to have with our professor. We're going to discuss on various topics, including our majors, our curriculum, and other topics that will be beneficial to all of you.
With this podcast, you can discover what you want to learn and, of course, the career opportunity upon your graduation. You can listen to it anywhere and anytime you want. This podcast will be published as live shows on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And for those who miss out our live shows, do not worry because AUPP Podcast is going to also be available on Google Podcast and Apple Podcast.
Without further ado, let's go and watch our first episode. Hello, I am Nita. Welcome to the first episode of AUPP Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us today. He is generously incredible. He is an expert in the field of business and he is also currently my professor as well. Please welcome Professor Pat Beck for today's episode.
Hello, everybody.
Professor, how are you today?
Very good, thanks. How are you, Nita?
I'm good too. So you might not recognize me because we are currently enrolled in the online class with UA. I'm currently your student in the real estate investment class. So this is actually my first time talking to you outside. So I'm actually quite excited. So to start off, I would like to ask about your personal background. How long have you been here in Cambodia and how did you end up here in Cambodia and in AUPP?
Okay, yeah, there's quite a bit there. First, happy Thanksgiving. We're celebrating here remotely, I guess. But yeah, I came to AUPP in 2017 and I came to Cambodia very late in 2016. I had just finished some studies at the London School of Economics. And my partner was here working at an NGO called Teach for Cambodia. Mm-hmm. So I got the call and she said, we've lived apart, so why not come to Cambodia? And I thought, what am I going to do in Cambodia? Mm-hmm. But AUPP was very welcoming and there were a lot of courses that were in line with my education. And so I started teaching then.
How has it been so far?
Well, it's been a challenge sometimes to adjust, but it's been very rewarding seeing some of our former students go on to start their own businesses or work in the ministries or study abroad. It is very rewarding to see that. Sometimes there's challenges. Some students have a challenge learning in English or learning an American-style education because there's really a lot of effort that we put on developing critical thinking skills, independent thought. And according to the ministry here, sometimes we have to do it with limited guidance. That's one of the criteria they ask for. So some students, want to learn, want to know exactly what they need to do and be told. But in the business program, it's more about people developing their own way to learn how to think.
I think that's a very interesting point because I am a business major myself, so I kind of have a few ideas about what the major is about. But to our audience, can you tell us a bit about the business major, what to expect from that major, and how to prepare ourselves for that major?
Okay. Well, yeah, to prepare yourself, I think the IELTS, practice the English, that always helps. Formal writing is very important in business, writing memorandums or letters to the boss or reports. So I would say first maybe start to focus there. Also, an active engagement in current affairs or current events, maybe joining a local business or investment community. I think those are ways that students can start to prepare just to be in the business world. It's really a bubble within society. But as far as what to expect, I think there's a variety of ways you can take the major. A lot of our students opt for the dual degree with University of Arizona. It gives you a little bit less freedom in electives you can choose, but then you get a U.S. degree as well as a degree from here at AUPP. There are a few different concentrations students can take too. primarily there are things like marketing or, for example, management skills. We teach, or accounting. We teach quite a broad array of subjects here. And we want people and students, when they finish the BA here, to be able to enter directly into the corporate world, or again, to start their own business. And some students to really just help bring best practices to their own family businesses. And so a lot of what we study is really around the leading edge of the world of what best manager practices are. And we incorporate that quite a bit. There are also opportunities for students to take minors.
Yeah.
So we have some students that focus on a minor in economics, or some that want to specialize regionally, they can do a minor in Southeast Asian studies. So we have that ability here too. It's quite a flexible program, and students can really take what they desire most out of it. I think usually it takes maybe a year or two at AUPP before students really start to specialize in one particular area or the other. Some people find out they really enjoy accounting. Others really like the strategy aspect. And I know now with our finance course, some people want to become real estate gurus. So they're learning all the technical skills necessary to be able to make profitable investments, for example.
I think it's correct that the business is a very broad major, and during my time here at AUPP I can find out what field of business that I am interested in and also take a minor, and from my personal experience in your class, as you have mentioned earlier, it's a lot about critical thinking and engaging teamwork. Mostly we go into breakout rooms and discuss and then do the assignment together. So are there any challenges in encouraging students to participate fully? Because your class is very independent. Like we can talk with our friends about the assignments and we can discuss, but at the same time it can also be a challenge for some students who is a bit shy or is not engaging in the teamwork. So what would be your advice for them?
Well, we try to have a few ways to engage. So sometimes it's orally, which is also a requirement from the ministry, but other times it's written work. What I find, especially in the larger classes, it's good to have these kind of break out into smaller groups, and usually a self-selected team, because you start to earn a reputation within your cohort. If you're a hard worker, people know who's going to put in the work, and some people maybe put in a little less work. So it's similar to what you'll experience in the business world. If your colleagues know you as a strong worker, someone who's skilled, they're going to want to work on projects with you. So we try to replicate what it's like in the real world for students. Now, if you have courses that are, let's say, lower division courses when you start out, you'll probably see a lot more lecture in those type of courses, because you need to first learn and memorize the concepts. But as you move further into the program, into these 300 and 400 level courses, those upper division courses require more of that independent thought. So it's sort of expected that you have those skills and you've already learned those skills in the first 1 or 2 years. And so that's why we see this independence. I would highly recommend students to be very active and engaged in the courses. I know that sometimes Cambodian students feel a little bit reluctant to speak up. But one of the things I really enjoy about teaching is when the students try to correct the professor. It's a great opportunity to know that they can sometimes challenge based on they do have these skills, based on their own interpretation. So a lot of the business world, there's not really a true, false, right, wrong answer. It's really an analytical approach, and everyone has their own sort of perspective. I think we see that in the real estate class now. We have quite a few different groups all studying the same property and analyzing it as a proper investment, but we come to a variety of different opinions. So as these sort of white-collar, higher-level jobs in the future open up for our graduates, they're going to need those skills. So I would say definitely be active in the program. Try to get past the shyness. We have an expression that says, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if you don't speak up, you're not going to get your needs met. But also there's digital forums we have available, so people can just chat like they would be chatting online with each other. We use a lot of digital tools here in the program.
So that's very interesting because it is true that studying business is not all about studying what is said in the lecture, but also applying it to the actual context. So, what kind of student characteristic do business major have? Like the common typical characteristic that they should equip themselves before entering the workforce?
I'm not sure if there's anything particular. I would say working on soft skills in general. We're learning these sort of technical skills and the harder skills, but working in the groups, your ability to take feedback and criticism, the ability to bounce back from maybe a bad assignment, that's really crucial for business because it's not always going to be, roses. There will be some setbacks. So I think that working in the groups and working amongst your cohort, developing networking skills, building a relationship there, that's really going to be important. I think what we find in the business major particularly are some students come in and they just want to memorize the whole book. Maybe that's how they were taught in high school. Memorize all of this. And yeah, it's important to know that stuff, but a lot of it you can just Google. So we want you to know what you need to look at and where you need to look, but more importantly, how to apply that. So I'd say be open and receptive to feedback, be resilient, be personable, all these sort of soft skills that make people want to engage with you. People don't want to interact with people in business if they don't like them. We kind of call this sometimes the Monday morning test. So when you go for a job application, one of the first things the hiring manager tends to think about is, do I want to see this person first thing in the morning after my weekend? And so if they're kind of aggressive or unpleasant, even if they're skilled, they might not get hired. So we want people to be personable. We want people to like us. And so that's a big part here, are these soft skills and being open to others.
On that note, I'm a bit curious on what should we do outside our actual lecture times. Like there might be competition or I think that you were the guidance professor for the stock competition. So how was the experience and do you encourage students to join those kind of activities?
Absolutely. All these activities outside, one, they look great on the resume, on your CV. But two, it gives you some real practical experience. Also sometimes a chance to win some money. And it's really a good way to get to know some of the other students. I know some of the former alumni of the program who work together.
I think they're the champion.
Yeah, and they were the champion, and it formed a really lifelong bond with them. They're still very close. So it is a challenge, so it's tough, it's extra work, but these extracurriculars are very important to sort of have a rounded development. We have a liberal arts approach in the West, so we want our students to be well-rounded, they know how to serve in the community, and maybe not only challenges that give them, let's say, a monetary reward, but sometimes just a volunteering project. So the one you were referring to is the CFA competition.
Yes.
That's a good one. It is very challenging. I recommend it for people who want to get involved in financing. And it directly looks at publicly traded companies on the Cambodia Stock Exchange. There are others, though. SMART has competitions. There's also the business model competition. There are quite a few of these that are around and even sometimes associated with accelerators. And these accelerators can turn maybe your own business idea and give a little bit of seed funding to help start your own business. So it's a good way to get real-world experience without the cost that you might be associated with a business failure, real economic or real financial cost. But yeah, I really recommend students to get involved not only in these external competitions, but also in a variety of student clubs that we have. We have an investment club, and people that have your common interest in mind, they'll help you push you forward a little bit more than independent study can do.
I'm really looking forward to joining those competitions because I think that here at AUPP we are encouraged to do so, and we can also seek help from professor. And I have heard a lot from seniors about you, about how they're like Pat Beck is like God of the econ world and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to joining those programs. But other than programs, like after we actually graduate, what kind of career opportunity can business major expect?
Well, again, it's quite varied. The skills that you learn in the business program, you can take to, let's say, if it was accounting, you could go to the Big Four, so something like Deloitte, and work as an accountant. Or you could go to somewhere like ISI Steel or Brown and be a manager there, a higher level manager. You could work in a bank. Again, you could take these skills back to your family business, or you could be an entrepreneur. There's great opportunities here with the growing economy in Cambodia, even despite sort of recent setbacks with pandemic. Cambodia still has a young population, and the market is developing. So there are a lot of business opportunities that are available, not only investing in real estate, but also starting up new businesses, new services. So I think it gives our students the ability and the confidence to know they can go out as an entrepreneur and handle any of these real-world situations. But I would say primarily the management degree is good for students to show that they have these skills to move up within an organization. So if it is a large corporate organization or a small mom and pop shop, if you show that you have these skills, you'll be trusted with more and more responsibilities in the future.
I think that earlier you have mentioned a bit about the challenges in pursuing this major. So can you give us a bit more in depth about the primary challenges of entrepreneurship or of studying this major, especially for those high school students out there who's not familiar with the American curriculum major and studying entirely in English?
Yeah, so I think that's the first challenge for a lot of students is it is all in English. Now, that doesn't mean when we have smaller breakout groups that you can't speak in Khmer with your friends, but the instruction, the language of instruction is English, and the assignments will be done in English. So I think that would be the primary challenge for a lot of people. We have a great EPP, English Placement Program here. So for people who feel maybe their English isn't up to the level that they need, they can also get the training here and then transition into the program. Other challenges might be, especially with entrepreneurs, is this concept of uncertainty. So it's easy when you know what the future is, which decisions to make, but unfortunately we don't know the future, or maybe fortunately, but with this uncertainty, having this confidence, knowing that you can respond to whatever the future brings, I think that's a real challenge to get that self-confidence and know that you can handle whatever challenges the business world might throw at you. So if, for example, you opened a hotel, you might be hurting a little bit right now. But if you know that there's ways that you can reduce your cost, or you have a good marketing scheme where you can now attract more domestic tourists, I think you'd be in a lot better position having these skills, even in the times that we're in where there's some uncertainty.
The next question is just something that popped up into my mind
Okay.
right now. I'm a bit curious because we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So I find it personally very difficult to stay engaged and active during the shift from offline education to online education, although we're mostly doing blended education here. But do you have any tips or advice for us to stay productive during this pandemic?
Well, first I say everybody stay safe, yeah? So let's take our precautions seriously. We're following the Ministry of Health. We're following all the guidelines here. Now, I really miss the physical interaction with students. It's nice to see faces and maybe not just a webcam sometimes. But I think, yeah, we'll steadily find our way through this pandemic. But I think to stay engaged is to keep focused on your end goals. It can really help there. In a Western-style educational model, you have a few hours maybe of lecture or in-class time, but you spend time on your own doing a lot of reading, practicing some exercises, for example, working in Excel a lot, right?
A lot.
Yeah. So Excel is going to be very useful. So I know it's tough, but keep at it. It's used all throughout the business world. But yeah, I would say that to keep the motivation, just keep those goals in mind. You know, what are you thinking about in the future? And maybe you don't know yet. Maybe it's a grad school somewhere else, or again, maybe it's starting up your own business. But if you keep that in mind, You're not learning something just to pass a test or just to get a grade. You're learning a skill that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And if it wasn't easy, then everybody would do it. But AUPP is rigorous, academic excellence. We strive for that. So we build this reputation in the community. Our graduates are known as the top students. And that's because we make it challenging. And so if you want to be part of that elite club, those AUPP graduates, UA graduates, just think that that's your goal. It's going to open up a bunch of doors in the future. And I think that should be motivation.
It is a very inspiring motivation. So I think we're kind of approaching our end. So do you have any last message for the audience who's watching AUPP podcast out there, or just to high school student out there who's interested in this major?
Well, first to the high school students, stay focused there. Come by, see the campus. I think you'd really enjoy to come by. It's a brand new building. It's very beautiful. So we're all very happy here. But I would say, keep focused on the exams for now. Keep your goals in mind and see AUPP could really be a way for you to reach those goals in the future. As far as our current students, keep your head up. We're getting through the pandemic. Everyone's doing well. And pretty soon things hopefully will be back to normal here. We'll still give the blended option for certain classes so people can learn remotely. But to get back on campus and get the campus vibe again, it'd be really welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor, for your time. It was my pleasure talking to you. So if you have any other questions that we have not covered during this episode, you can surely leave it in the comment section below. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and hit on the bell for further updates. And if you're on Facebook, please share this podcast to your friends and your family out there. And it's also available on Google Podcast and Apple, so don't forget to check that out as well. Thank you for listening to AUPP Podcast, and thank you, Professor Pat Beck. See you in the next episode.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Nita. See you guys.